Pricing Committee, Velvet Rope Cartel, turning every checkout into Dante's seventh hell. Can we
Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Pricing Committee. Today we're going to talk about tokenxiety. And tokenxiety is a feeling that most CFOs are getting, COOs, CEOs are getting now about their token bills. For many months, people have been running, whether it be Claude, Anthropic or GPT, not really knowing the full cost. Now, everybody knows they've been subsidized, but no one really knows how much they've been subsidized. Now they're about to find out. And even then, I don't think the price is what it's going to be. Now, a few months ago, I had a bit of a LinkedIn argument, if that's possible, with someone saying that the prices are 4x too low. I think I was wrong. I think the prices that we've been charged up until maybe January this year were probably 8x too low. And we're starting to see that because the prices have pretty much gone up 2 or 3x already. They're about to go up even more, sometimes in an obvious way, sometimes in a less obvious way, with usage caps, limits, gating, fencing, and now with the classic from Anthropic of speed charges or speed run charges. So we're going to go through a couple of articles, maybe 3 articles today, which kind of talk to the theme of the anxiety playing out and also what looks like an opportunity for consultants to make a bit of cash, which is always good for the big four. So it's going to head over to the first article, which is from E&Y. So here we go. Here's the article, Unlocking Agentic Value, a new investment discipline for the agentic era. Now, you can't beat the big four for getting the word agentic in quite a lot. And I'm not going to count how many times, but already just scanning through, I can see another 8 uses of the word agentic. Anyway, as the agentic era reshapes the AI economics of enterprise, organizations have an opportunity to govern run rate exposure as a growth investment, protecting operating budgets. So what they're basically saying is here, unlike, say, most of the other things that we've ever rolled out, whether it be Salesforce or I rolled out SAP, Oracle as well, maybe in the early 90s, what else did we have? Some microsystems. We rolled out a number of systems which were big, heavy, and particularly expensive. But we never really had to worry about total cost of ownership. It was something on paper, $500,000 a year, maybe $5 million to put in, and then you have to update it every 5 years, etc. But you didn't really have to worry about the run costs per se. It was just like real software. It cost a little bit of money to have software, to have BCP, etc. Now that's changed. So in addition to having a really complex implementation, trust me, putting AI into any organization is pretty difficult. You're going to have to really worry about back end, and not just back end and set it and forget it and set up the calculus and Bob's your uncle. But these companies are in the kind of the IPO ambition tool. And as a result, you're pretty much going to have to check on that pricing baby every month to make sure it's still sleeping and not basically running around the house and causing chaos. And in that sense, there's a whole new era opening up, and I believe for cost governance, cost control, and kind of pricing end to end. Now, I've been trying to bang on about a role of chief yield officer, much to the chagrin of many people who think it's complete nonsense. But the thesis behind it is saying that the costs are really important input. We're going to work on the output, and some companies are getting closer to having a value proposition that can use AI that's actually meaningful and people are paying for. But that's only valid if you can work out the cost. It's no use producing wheat at a cost of 10 times more than basically you had before, even though it's more efficient using AI. So in that sense, people have a good idea of what they can produce of value, but not really a clear idea how to price it yet. We've talked about outcome pricing, usage-based pricing, cost plus, etc., but there isn't really clear consensus how to price it. But what is developing consensus around this tokenxiety is, I don't know how much I'm going to pay. And it's one thing to be able to miss a budget for revenue, but it's altogether another thing to miss a budget for cost. And if you think about a CFO, and CFOs I work with, Yeah, you can miss a revenue budget here and there. That's not ideal, but you can blame someone else. Oh, the sales force wasn't updated, the pipeline wasn't working, you didn't have enough salespeople. Johnny over there did a shit job. Jane over there did also a shit job. You can blame someone. But in terms of cost overruns, it's very, very, very difficult to blame someone if you're the CFO. Your job is to guarantee a 95 to 105, worst case 92 to kind of 108 type cost run efficiency. And if you miss that and you're a public company, you're going to be in the shit as a CFO. And so this tokenxiety is really, really rampant among CFOs, certain degree COOs and CFOs, but CEOs, but CFOs are really, really staying awake. And EY realised that and realised actually maybe there's a thing here. In a very similar way to, I can't remember if it's PwC or another big four, really, really went to town on cloud costs and auditing cloud costs, almost for an outcome-based, we'll save you half the cost and you give us a quarter of that or half of that. Very, very good business indeed, because it's always possible to save on cloud costs. I think this is very, very similar in the sense that E&Y are really sounding a bugle and saying there is some money here. And there's some money because CFOs are very, very anxious, tokenxiety, and with vendors, and we'll come on to what the vendors are doing in the last couple of days. The vendors doing all sorts of crazy jujitsus when it comes to pricing because they're on the IPO ambition tour. You really need to have your head screwed on, and you need a functional control of this, which is almost market to market the cost every day. And that is an anathema to most CFOs in terms of technology costs, to be able to review it and manage it and basically price it end to end every single day. I think that's where we're moving to. And so this article basically says that we will be able to help you. No doubt there's something at the bottom which says just give us a call. But it's pretty much saying if you're going to swap labour costs for agentic costs or agent costs, I've got the yellow card there saying agentic, you're going to need something in the middle. And that middle is governance, control, and almost a new FP&A, but an operational FP&A, maybe some people call it FinOps, literally down a rabbit hole, working out every single price move and what is moving and why it's moving. And we're going to head over to the next article, which is Salesforce, just a recap on what we discussed yesterday, which kind of talks to the same thing, but the software company saying, well, I realize this tokenxiety is there and I have to address it. So we're just going to head over there now. So this is a deal which was kind of always in the offing when I think a few months ago I saw that announced by, I think, Griffin Parry, one of the CEOs, co-founders, that Meta was in a partnership or going into partnership with Salesforce, which I assume was some sort of dating to purchase, and they probably like what they see. So essentially, Meta are a company, from my understanding, that really go down the consumption rabbit hole, that go down the telemetry, understanding usage, dashboarding, really, really tight FinOps in terms of understanding and monitoring and managing your usage and consumption. Now, if you think about Salesforce, now Mark Benioff, in my mind, is a bit of a legend. After inventing, let's be fair, SaaS as a business operating model, after seeing a really obvious model at, what was it, Oracle before, or Siebel? The Oracle, I think it was Oracle before, and then took on Siebel. And so he'd obviously seen conventional sales, proper license agreements before, okay, the new way, and that was SaaS a new way in 1999, I believe, or 2000. Now, 2024, I think he first started on his agent ambition tour. He realized that the agents and consumption is a new way to go. No longer the seat is long for the day. We're pretty much talking about consumption going forward. And many people laughed at his ambition tour. He was on pretty much 15, 20, maybe even 25 podcasts, pretty senior podcasts too, with massive reach. And it didn't really work. I think it initially started at $2 and then it went to 10 cents for certain actions. One was resolution and it wasn't action or event. There was a lot going on. Then there was an Einstein bundling. There's a lot of noise around his pricing. But to be fair to the geezer, he's tried a lot of different things. And in that sense, you can only say, tip your hat off to him and say that he's trying to find a new monetization model. What he's probably realised in selling is that even when he's selling at the 10 cents level, people are still anxious. They're anxious in terms of working out what the hell is my cost bill going to be at the end of the month. And they haven't necessarily got the tool in themselves and can't be bothered to buy Metronome or Orb or Digital Root or something which could definitely do the job, but is another different implementation problem altogether. So if they're already running Salesforce, the question would be, well, actually, why not just buy it all in one go? And that's what Salesforce have realized, that if you can offer the tool in the agentic stuff, I said agentic and then there's maybe a red card, at least a warning. If you can offer the agent stuff on a consumption base, but also bundle in kind of the FP&A FinOps tools at the same time, it's going to be much more of a winner than versus a HubSpot or I can't remember the other CRM, but there's loads of them. So in this sense, it makes perfect sense because one, you can sell more product. Two, you may even go in with a different offering. Your offering may be actually, we are the only platform that allows you to control your cost, as opposed to we're the best platform for CRMs or agentic CRMs or agent CRMs. So I believe that if this works well, it may give them a completely different route or go to market, which says we are the most cost efficient, or at least the most cost visible. And we do that by integrating really, really good tooling and also make it exclusive so you can't actually get it in the market anymore. Introducing really, really good tooling at the same time of what we believe to be a good product. So I think this is one of the things that really helps CFOs decide, do I want to go with Salesforce agents? I don't love Salesforce, but actually I do like control. I do like forecasting. I do like budgeting. And most importantly, I kind of like keeping my job. So we'll head over to the next article, which kind of shows why this is so pushing, why this timing is so good, and why Tokenxiety is running rampant amongst CFOs. Let's just head over there now. This is the article from Claude Fable from Anthropic, Claude Fable and Claude Mythos 5. Now, what can I say about this? So I saw Claude Fable, I'm on a desktop, so I saw Claude Fable come through above 4.8. So I was going to give it a go, but I thought, no, I know it's going to be expensive and going to spunk my credits for the rest of the month. So I actually left it well alone. But here's the announcement. I saw initially from Rob, and we'll come on to Rob's website in a minute, Rob Litterst. But this is introducing Claude Fable, which they've labelled in the kind of their own inimitable way. That is part of the Mythos class. The Mythos, for those that remember, was something that a few months ago they were saying is so important that we can't release it other than to 15 people who are going to be the early users and the government. And we believe this is the end of cybersecurity, etc. Really, really a lot of fanfare and a lot of hoopla in terms of scaring the bejesus out of people. But that was obviously for a purpose, and the purpose was obviously so they could charge double the price of what the previous one cost. And so here, somewhere here in here, you'll see that the costs are basically £50 per million output tokens, or $50 even. And that's all well and good, but it's double the 4.8. But it's double the 4.8 for a reason. And that reason is to do with speed. I think you can choose a 2.5x speed and pay double the cost. So that's all well and good. But back to token anxiety. Why would this make you even more anxious than you were before? Well, Claude is, in my mind, still one of the better models. I've used GPT for more writing, but Claude for if you want a certain answer and more mathematical. And I assume coders like Claude more. But the problem is that we haven't really worked out the equivalency of labour. Now, everybody's talking about, in a dystopian way, of sacking people and labour budgets being replaced, etc. But in reality, it's still really an augmentation tool. And in that sense, it's just extra budget. We've seen the Uber scenario. We've seen the other scenario? People believe AWS, but that's allegedly the 500 million, and definitely what's happened with Microsoft saying that actually this should cost a lot of money. We have to rip it out. This is going to cause a lot of anxiety in firms that don't have that kind of infrastructure to be able to manage and govern. So just think of the scenario, a ridiculous scenario where a dev wants to go to lunch early and presses the wrong button or doesn't press the right button to disable the 2x feature. Well, there you go. Your costs are 2x for just a bit more speed because he wanted it before he went to lunch. Normally going to be a bro. And so this is going to add to even more anxiety. So if we just head over to maybe a better explanation of what's going on, and I'll just read it verbatim from Rob's website, which is Pricing SaaS. Here we go. So here, maybe I'll just read it out verbatim. Opus, plan added. Opus 4.8 launched the flagship API model. We know that. So the previous one was $5/$25 per million tokens, Opus 4.7. But this one, Opus 4.8, at 2x standard pricing for 2.5x faster speeds. So again, I can't really think of the use case where someone needs it 2.5x faster. Maybe if they're doing, I don't know, if they're doing some sort of dynamic racing for pricing and some sort, maybe airlines, maybe seats, who knows. But I'm sure someone will come forward and say, it's obvious, Gary, this is why I need 2.5 x speed, and I'm willing to basically go to battle with my CFO. Currently, I cannot see it, and I can't see any CFO willingly signing this off without her or him going to battle with the board. And so we'll see who uses this. But this is basically why there is so much token anxiety. Every single month, something is changing. And that change requires you to really think about the total cost of ownership of that product, which you didn't really have to think on a 6-monthly basis, even an annually basis, when you put in a SAP or in the old days, PeopleSoft or Gusto or Lattice or Oracle. You thought about it, kind of set it and forget it, one and done. And every 2 years, you'd get the new bill and you'd have to work out and negotiate what's going on. They always try to get you onto the cloud, etc. But in reality, the total cost of ownership was kind of set. We've entered a very new world where, one, you have to find your own value from the product. It's not guaranteed. And many people are down on some of the SaaS products that we bought in the past, particularly like the Salesforce, etc. Even SAP to a degree. I remember way back when I didn't put it in initially, I remediated it in a couple of firms, and then we put another one in a different firm. And it never worked on day one. But with remediation, it worked, and it worked pretty well. But what I remember is the kind of negativity around that system. But what the systems are really good at, particularly if you've got more than, say, 1,000 people, they're really good at forcing you down an SOP rabbit hole. These are our standard operating procedures, and we could write them down till we're blue in the face and no one's going to read what we've written down. Whereas when you have a system like SAP or PeopleSoft or Gusto or Lattice or even HubSpot to a degree, they really force you to basically follow the rules because those systems are pretty inflexible. That kind of is the DNA of the system, being inflexible. We've moved to a world now with AI where everything's flexible in the front end, and it would seem with the pricing in the back end. And that means a completely different, I've got to say the word paradigm once a day, a paradigm shift in the way that we think about end to end. And so many people are talking about the FinOps era. And so I lived in the FP&A era where FP&A came out of pretty much nowhere, when we had more data, more communication means, PowerPoints, Visio, etc., and a voracious kind of appetite for data and more financials, etc. I believe the new era will be of FinOps and the Chief Yield Officer. So I've mentioned the Chief Yield Officer quite a few times and normally been repelled and somewhat laughed at. But I'm going to keep on banging the drum. And the Chief Yield Officer would be someone who sits in between and says, okay, we're going to work out our pricing. And that pricing obviously has to take into effect or take into account costs much more than it did before. And I need to work out the yield on every single kind of transaction we do, the yield on every single straight through product that we have, because I need to be able to look straight through. And what we talked about earlier with Meter and Salesforce means that someone may be able to have more visibility all the way to the contract, all the way back to how much it's actually costing, because there'd be some sort of meter system that excuse the pun, that allows them to understand exactly what's going on in terms of what the inputs are and adjust it and tweak it and pretty much treat it like a refinery of a product. And so we'll head over to the next article, the last article, which kind of explains another approach which companies are also using to kind of assuage the token anxiety. So we'll just head over there now. So here's an article from Basic Future Room about Pega. And Pega Systems is, from my understanding, a low-code system that enables you to do some sort of business objecty things. I'm showing my age here, but allows you to build workflows together in an organized way. They're a pretty big company, I think turnover circa 1.5 billion, so pretty big. And so here they're addressing the token anxiety of saying that actually somehow we're going to have to be able to work out upfront, doing a lot of work in the way that we workflow this particular product to make sure that you understand the cost base of your tokens. So if you think what's happening now, people are engineering kind of new products, new apps at the front end, but not working out the full total cost of ownership. What they're kind of suggesting here, and I'm sure they'll correct me if they ever hear this, is that whole app development or workflow development needs to be done in a much more controlled environment. And that controlled environment needs to pretty much take into account every single element of the workflow and the cost at the same time. And when you do that, you can get a pretty good predictability about your cost base, and therefore you can know, without using cost plus, but you can know exactly what you can price it at in terms of value or cost base or outcome base, etc. But you know your end-to-end cost. And this is basically saying, how do we turn a floating rate into a fixed? How do we turn a floating cost into a predictably fixed cost? Now, I don't know exactly how they're going to do that because it still sounds pretty difficult, but pretty much they're saying that you need to be able to look through all the way from the start all the way to the end of the product. It's not something we've ever done before. You've had disjointed departmental elements of, we do marketing, we do this, we do engineering, this is the cost of the infra of the blob. And then someone in FP&A or in finance has got to be able to allocate that. This is much more talking to, well, no, we're going to allocate it straight through, all the way through, understanding right from what's being sold all the way to how it was created. And that one sausage is going to be able to be controlled by our system, and the visibility will be around our system. So sounds like a very, very, very optimistic challenge, but actually it's an important challenge. So if they can solve it, then fair play to them. So that's really most of the article today, and we'll just do a brief summary of where we are and what you can look forward to going forward. So these all speak to the same issues, and going forward, I can predict, without being out on the ledge, that FinOps is definitely a big thing. It's already a big thing now, but it's going to be much more. So in this last few months, I've met a few companies, Digital Root, we've read up about Metronome. There's obviously then the Meter, Orb. There's many companies that have been around for 2, 3, sometimes even longer years that have been beating the drum. And they had an issue that they had to solve 2, 3 years ago, but it wasn't as emergent. Now that issue has to really be solved. And so you can see that Salesforce are solving it by deep integration with a company, buying the company, taking it off the market. And I believe there are only maybe 10 players I know about in the market. And if each of these is pulled out, Metronome being taken over by Stripe, then you can argue of Meter being taken out by Salesforce. If Orb, I'm not quite sure they've been taken over yet, Digital Root. There's many of these that could be deeply, deeply integrated, but more importantly, taken off the chessboard. And that will be a problem for many companies if they do want to do this absent being integrated with a kind of front-end firm. I predict that on top of FinOps, there will be a chief yield officer, and that person will be doing exactly what Pega are saying that they can do, which is we should be able to trace every single product all the way back to the sausage factory that were, and the cost base, because we're going to need to do that, because the kind of SaaS model of 25% R&D and we're going to reallocate it at the blob, no, it's not really going to work. And so you heard it here, FinOps is part of the infrastructure we need to change, but most importantly, companies to get over their token anxiety will have to have a way of having a really, really deeply integrated usage-based telemetry system that really tells them exactly how much is being used, who has governance over it, and allows you to give someone a slap when they've used 2x when they shouldn't have done. So that's the pod for the day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
The Pricing Committee, Velvet Rope Cartel, turning every checkout into Dante's seventh hell. Can we simplify? Gets treated like a crime, cause complexity looks smart when you present it in a slide. Every metric looking healthy till the profit disappear, like magic trick performed by venture capitalists of the year. Net retention floating high like a helium parade till the AWS invoice enters with a switchblade.